Ross. I'm with NYLAS. We're API for what, Danielle?
For email, calendar, and contacts.
Yeah.
You called on here.
Yeah.
You gotta know what to talk about.
No, that's good. Danielle is our top #1 enterprise rep. Direct. Yeah, direct from Boston. And so NYLAS, we're super excited to host this event. We're going to host it every time until we get too large, and then we'll let people watch from out here. And so, yeah, we're based in San Francisco, but we actually have more people in the Denver office than San Francisco. So this is sort of like HQ2. And there was some news in the bank. We were able to today order an extra couple pizzas. So we're super excited about that. And
wow.
So anyway,
pulling all the strings. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll turn it over to Breeze, and he'll do an overview of what we're going to talk about tonight, and introductions and all that.
Yep. So. Sounds good. Thanks, Gary. And yeah, since NYLAS hosting us today is awesome. Just a quick recap on the Denver API Meetup for those of you who are not familiar with it. We started back in September of last year. Initially, it was with Uri and Alice, Grace, myself.
That's the French connection.
That's the French connection. So it's Uri.
It's Alice and Ari, guys. You got it.
So yeah, we started that. Unfortunately, as you all know, we had to be like fully virtual. We started with Tony at the time. He did the very first one. It was at Twilio. So talking about all the messaging and texting APIs. Tony's supposed to show up in a couple of minutes. The last one we had was with Ross out there. We did it around the largest IoT platform in the world with Volkswagen. They are on board like so many, they have so many vehicles that they have to collect all this data and just do something with it. You know, we have a good idea what you can do with it now. If you don't really know, we have the recording on the YouTube channel. So it's kind of like an hour-ish, and you can watch the video and see what they're doing.
That was a very cool talk.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. Everybody
cool products you guys got going on over there.
So yeah, so we're super excited because today is the first time we can actually meet in person. So there's a lot of people that we used to see on webcams, and we're like, okay, when is going to be the first time we can? And finally, this day has come. So that's awesome. Again, so grateful that we could organize all the logistics.
We're just waiting for them to get their funding so they can get pizzas for us. That's
the
reason we're waiting.
We are going to try to keep this cadence that we had with the virtual meetings. Usually it's maybe like every month and a half, something like that. And as always, welcoming it to any of you if you have a topic in mind, if you are in the industry and you want to talk about something, you know, that is close to your heart. Let us know, because we're always looking for speakers, and the more speakers, the more fun we can do that. And you know, the more fun we can meet, the more connection we create. So it's really what we're trying to do here, trying to bring all API-oriented people in the Denver area together. With that, I think I'm just going to hand it over to Jenny, who is going to tell us about NYLAS, and especially the calendar API, and how it's being used for COVID vaccine scheduling. So thanks everybody. Just so you know, the presentation is usually around like 15-ish minutes around. Feel free to jump in with your questions. You know, like we really want that to be very interactive. We're live streaming on YouTube, so we may get some questions, you know, from the people who are on YouTube right now. But yeah, feel free to jump in. At the end, we usually keep like 5-10 minutes for questions that may be a little delayed or came up a little late. And we push until 7 p.m. for a little more social time. So you're welcome to stay here until 7 p.m. And then we'll wrap up and see each other the next time. So.
Did we want to introduce ourselves very quickly?
Not
take too much time, but
okay, cool. So yeah, I'm Grace. We've heard that before. I work for Axway. It's an API integration platform software vendor. And I'm in engineering. I'm responsible for the site reliability engineering team at Axway.
Jim Tustin, solutions engineer at NYLAS. I work with Johnny, so very excited to hear this talk.
And Conan.
DH, Gary Gessler, BDB.
Hi everyone, so my name is Ori, and I'm part of the organization with Alice and Luis. I work at API Days. It's a series of conferences all around the world. We have API Days conferences in New York, in Paris, London, Helsinki, Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, Jakarta, India. And everything is online, so you can do the full roadmap if you want. You might have some trouble with some time zone, but basically it's free and online right now. We hope to get back to in-person conferences next year. I guess we'll see. Nobody can predict how it will be, but yeah, that's what I do.
I'm kind of the joker card here, I guess. Last time I was here, I was the one pitching and in the driver's seat, so now I return the favor by coming to hear your talk. And by the way, we're building one of the first apps that are going to be in Zoom, and so we are also building a product that has a lot of calendar integrations, and so this is also something that's topically relevant to me and interesting.
And who are you?
So.
Yeah, what's your name and who are you?
Derek, sorry,
You're good.
Derek Jackson.
You're presumed?
And the company?
I work at a startup company called Warmly. We're partnering with Zoom in a distribution effort, so not directly, but
cool.
Yeah. And Gary's startup mentoring me, so he kind of brings me along to these events, so I can kind of meet everyone. And yeah.
Lucky guy with a mentor like that.
I guess we could skip me because I'll start.
Okay, great. So I'm David Honan, also a senior solutions engineer at NYLAS. I work really closely with Johnny and the rest of the NYLAS team.
I'm David Goosen. I work for a company called Resurface Labs, and we make an API system of record that records responses and request details of API that we can search. And so we're interested in, meeting fellow API people. We're excited to be here as part of this community.
Yeah, so cool. Christine Badiguero. I'm also with Resurface, and essentially his chauffeur for the season.
Hi everybody, I'm Ross Garrett. I lead the product team at a startup inside Volkswagen called Volkswagen Automotive Cloud, and that was the talk we did last time with Reese.
Awesome. I'm Danielle Vandenbalk. I'm an enterprise rep here at NYLAS. Excited to meet everyone. I was a part of this deal somewhat when it came in. DH and Johnny, this is their brainchild. So excited to meet everyone today.
Hi, my name's Jen. I'm with Stoplight. See if I can talk. Stoplight, which is an API design first. So instead of code first, design your API.
Hi, everybody. My name is Justin. I'm the head of support engineering at a company called Checker. We do machine learning and AI-powered background checks via API, of course, for some of the largest companies like Uber, DoorDash, Lyft, whomever.
Who are they?
Who are the guys?
Some of you might be taking them.
Is that Girl Scout cookie company?
Hey everybody, Miles Erbagon. I work for NYLAS. You might remember me from the door. And a lot of my colleagues here, so happy to be here.
And I'm Jamie Castiglione, BDR here as well at NYLAS. Been here for about 4 months, so still learning quite a bit. And it's cool to be at an event like this.
Yep, and I'm Bailey Johnson, and a BDR as well.
And my name is Alice. I am one of the co-organizers with the Denver API Meetup group, and I work for a company called Curry. It's a startup, and it's Uber for delivery of construction material, and I'm the marketing manager for this startup.
Oh,
yes. I'll tell you more if you want.
Yes. My name is Brendan O'Brien. I work for a company called Daxco, and we manage gym software. So basically all from small business gyms all the way up to like massive YMCA enterprises. And I'm the web development manager for them. So I help our clients interact with our API systems to make sure that people can register for classes, sign up for gyms, track membership usage, lots of fun stuff related to COVID as well. So it's been a fun journey for all of us, I'm sure.
Great. Cool. Well, thanks, everyone.
Yeah, I was going to check. We have a couple of people.
Pizza, beer, wine.
Yes,
please. You want to refresh? Grab it.
Get involved. I'll pour the wine if you want.
Yeah. So for whoever is online, I don't know if you can actually speak up. I don't know. I think we have Carlos and Arthur. So if you can just.
Be in StreamYard.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're just watching.
Oh, okay, that's fine. If you want to send that in the chat, and then we can just share it with everybody. So, all right. Well, with that, Johnny, now the floor is yours.
Yeah, if you want to switch that stream to my screen, I'm still sharing still. Still sharing.
I'll let you do. You're the tech girl. No.
Yes.
Okay,
All right, let me.
To unmute yourself. I'm unmuted, but you gotta mute yours. Oh wait, you muted me. Or maybe I muted me. How about now? How about now? Hello, hello.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, and then the volume's down on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Go. All right, so this presentation is going to be pretty quick and straightforward. It's about how NYLAS powers COVID vaccine scheduling. I'm Johnny Hatch. I work at NYLAS. We're an email, calendar, and contacts API. There's plenty of other people here that also work with me. I've actually worked here for about coming up on 3.5 years now. I started as a software engineer, and that's my entire 10-year career is as a software engineer. So I come in with a technical focus, and then I'm working with people like DH, Danielle and Gary that are teaching me how to actually sell software rather than just build it. So I've been working with that, and I like coming up with solutions because of my engineering background, and I understand all the technical details. So this is actually going to be essentially a story about how DH and I jumped on a call with a prospective customer, and they're the healthcare company. And they had gone through the ringer, basically, tried to find, searching frantically for different healthcare or scheduling solutions that could help them get COVID vaccine scheduling out to market really quick and effectively, because they tried a few different things and every single one of them seemed to fail. So on the call, these were the problems that they came to us with. And these were basically the problem statement and all the different variables that we had to figure out. And lucky enough, the NYLAS scheduler was flexible enough that we could figure out a solution that worked within the bounds without having to really change anything of our scheduler. So one of the things was the number of vaccinations vary by day or week and by location. So it's not just set up a scheduler page and then one size fits all. And then the type of vaccination, whether it's Moderna, Pfizer, because people are getting second doses. And if they already got one dose on the first one, they can't get a different dose on the next one. So that had to be taken into account. And then the number of queues. And this was basically, if you could think of a COVID vaccination site, they have what me and DH have come up with, our people we've talked to have come up with a nickname Jabber for, which is someone who's jabbing somebody with a vaccine. And they only have a certain amount of those, and they have a certain amount of those based on the number of vaccine doses they have in a day. So they need to balance all of that out, and then also have the scheduler be aware of all this balancing out, because these vaccines expire after X amount of days. So when they get the shipment, they need to make sure they maximize their bookings. And then open hours and busy times too. People are giving them at Walgreens. They're giving them at a parking lot. Everywhere they're giving them. Yeah, circuses. Exactly. Throw up a tent and they. Exactly. So there's so many flexible variables they had to take into account. And then for this specific customer, they wanted to know basically they wanted us to be able to track, okay, how many vaccines did we get this day? And then how many actual shots did we administer? So they wanted to use NYLAS, which is something kind of weird to use a calendar as like a data store, but believe it or not, it can be done, and they succeeded with that. Where and I'll get into like the details of how they did that, but we were basically the system of record at the same time. And then it had to scale too. So this particular solution was for 20 million vaccines. I think that was that the largest one we did? Yeah, so that was the largest one we did. And then we've done a few other ones since then. But we definitely needed to make sure that whatever we proposed met the above criteria and was scalable. And then reminders, reschedules, cancellations, as any good scheduling solution would handle. And it had to be quick. They wanted to go live in 2 weeks. So they had no time to mess around. They didn't have time to like build a full integration or any custom logic. So it needed to be basically turnkey.
What did you guys find was the biggest problem statement that affected you guys as well, like problem for your team as well?
I would have to say it was like the quick and then the queues. That was probably like the number of queues was tough to figure out. It literally came down to like an equation, simpler than just like, all right, we have this many people that can administer, we have this many doses, and this many people is like basically the queues, the number of queues, and how many they needed for a day to make sure they gave all of their vaccinations.
And how long it took to do a jab.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Timing all that out, yeah.
Yeah, and then like the buffer time. It's like, okay, how long should a time slot be? Like,
did you guys get that data from the client as far as all of that?
Yeah.
Use some R&D there, you're like, oh,
yes.
sorry,
Yes.
we got 2 weeks.
So while we were on the call with them, DH and I basically just had 100 questions for them. It was an hour-long call. We had 100 questions for them in the first 30 minutes of, okay, what about this? What about this? What about this? And that's kind of how we figured out all of these like problems that they needed to solve or that we needed to account for. And yeah, like that was all basically what they gave us. And then I don't know what we did. What did we do? Just sit in silence for a minute and then think about how our scheduler could help with that. But I'm pretty sure I said at one point, I was like, all right, give me a minute to think about this. But luckily our scheduler is basically, I'm sure people have heard of Calendly, but our scheduler is a lot like that. And I'll show you guys like a screenshot at the very end of this, where you can go in, you go to a link, someone sends you a link, you click that, and then you can see a calendar view and then book a time slot, maybe fill out a little form about it. And then the meeting is booked. Each people gets an invitation. It shows up on a calendar. And then you can also like configure reminders and a lot more. But ours is focused on other developers integrating it into their platform because we're an API company. So the scheduler also has full functionality with an API. So that was where we kind of got lucky on this use case, was that it was built with developers in mind rather than end users. Some other criteria was each site can have one or more and likely many patient queues. They can have many jabbers, and then each one has different open hours. So some of them are going to be open 6 to 4, some of them 8 to 5, 9 to 5. Some of them might have a lunch break, all of that stuff. And then we also had to make it specific to a location. So
with that schedule, were you guys taking live scheduling data from like the hospital's API and implementing it into yours to make sure that you're accurate data, or were you manually importing that?
So yeah, that would be possible with using like webhooks. So the crazy thing about this is that it all use what we call virtual calendars, where it's not even hosted on like Google, Microsoft, Apple, any of the calendar providers. It's literally internal to NYLAS, but our calendar API is identical for those as it is for like a virtual calendar that we host internally. And then our scheduler supports it. So it's an out-of-the-box scheduler solution, but it represents a resource calendar rather than a person's calendar.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So like you resource usage and like you just take people as resources and stuff.
Yeah. And
and they would enter the criteria in day before, 2
Okay,
days
I was going to
before.
ask if it was manual attrition.
Yeah, so they had an app on the front driving it. So what they would do is they would know how many like remember, this is back several months ago. So back when it was very high demand for these things, and they'd know how many they would have frozen, how many they could unfreeze for a given day, and they would adjust the number of lanes at a location based on that.
That's cool.
So they would
So you
take it
guys
on.
did like a site management.
No, they did that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things we had to do was walk them through that solution. And thankfully we're in like the pre-sales part. So DH and I basically kind of wrote the pie in the sky and like, this is how it all works. It'll do this. And
all do it.
And luckily we weren't wrong about any of it. Like in the end, it was all exactly what we said. But we didn't have to deal with the actual implementation. We just said, this is step by step how you should implement that. And we're going to jump into that actually. So
How long did it take you?
Take 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think like 2 weeks. They didn't really have developer resources. So I think it took a little bit longer than 2 weeks. But as far as I know, they weren't mad because everything seemed to be working and they hadn't found anything better or could even think of anything better.
Yeah, we had to make a couple product enhancements, like the minimum time for a meeting, things like that. But we did it pretty quick.
Yeah.
A couple little tweaks to fill.
Yeah, when they're just like, drive your car through, don't even stop, we'll just get your arm.
That's how I got mine. Is at the Beck Center. They're just like, here you go.
A little dartboard.
15 minutes. I was like, all right.
No more cough.
And then the scalability side of it, like we were ready to scale, we just hadn't done it to that scale.
Yeah, that's a 20 million.
And so it was very bursty too. Like they would release the back. Remember, you go back a few months. So when the link was out, all of a sudden, like you'd have people just pounding on it.
I couldn't find a meeting for the life of me.
So it really we had to make a couple of changes. There's a few other ones too. I don't know if we'll bring up today, but like in our normal scheduler, you can invite a friend to it, but you obviously don't want to do that for a COVID vaccination, right? Like, hey, I got an appointment. I'm bringing Ross, right?
I'm bringing +6. I'm bringing my whole family. My dog's coming.
So we had to turn some of those things off. But they were pretty quick enhancements, but it scaled up pretty well and it did well. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I mean, everybody feel free to ask questions. I usually preface that when I start to like give presentations or demos, like, please interrupt me because I'll just get on a one-way track and keep going. So we're jumping into the solution here. So virtual calendars, I touched on that a little bit. Virtual calendars, we essentially made to be like a Google Calendar or a Microsoft like Outlook calendar, so that it has the exact same API, exact same functionality, except it doesn't exist outside of NYLAS except for inside of applications. And then we also, since it has the identical API, which is great about APIs, is that it works with our scheduler out of the box. So in our scheduler, I should explain what our scheduler actually is. I did that a little bit, so I'll keep going with that. So what they're doing is they're creating a virtual calendar, and what a virtual calendar does, you can think of it just like on your Google Calendar, your Outlook calendar. If you have one calendar for like interviews, one for your team calendar, one for your company calendar, holidays, each one of those would be like a separate calendar, and it all can show up on the same one, but you can also look at them one by one. So we have virtual calendars, and each one of those represents a resource typically, and in this case, it was a COVID lane. So at any given time, if they had 15 virtual calendars linked to a single scheduler page, we would round robin those 15 calendars, which represents a lane or someone who can actually administer a dose at simultaneously, and the scheduler would automatically show those, and then they can the patients can book time on that. So they can either go, and I'll talk about this a little bit further, like they can either go just straight to a link, or they can talk to like a call center and someone else can even schedule it on their behalf. So each one of those represents a lane or a simultaneous COVID vaccination.
And then did you guys break that down even further? Because I know you said one of your concerns was like the different types of vaccine. So like, were they enumerated underneath that, or like where was that kept track of, or was it just lane specific?
Yeah, so that was another thing. And did they keep track of that in like the master calendar, or was that something they did on their side?
It was on their side for the individual person who they sent the invite out to, because back then it was, the age groups were a little higher. So they would have all of their patient profiles, And then they kept track of that on their side, so they knew on certain days there'd be the second dose for the first versus the first dose.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yep. So we
And it is schedule out both doses when you sign. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, there's a lot behind the scenes too. Technically, does everybody want me to get technical with it, or I think we can kind of just stay at high level?
Question on the second dose though, so wouldn't that also be subject to the supply on that second? So how do they manage that? Because it's automatically set up, assuming same volume, right?
Yeah, so they would know when they would get the second dose and then send the link out to make the appointment on the second dose. And sometimes they would make it for the person.
Okay.
So one thing there's a slide in here about how they had call center agents and they had a website and they can do the different pieces.
Okay.
So they could do it right from the first dose as well. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
But the second appointment wasn't scheduled with the first.
It wasn't like
No.
auto paired.
No,
Right.
it was done after you got the first.
Okay.
Then they would do the second. They would send a link out to the second dosers,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how that would work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that link automatically sent out after your first appointment, or do they have to manually go back and?
Their app took care of that,
Cool.
or they had a person do it, like an admin or a call center agent would do it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was like part of the system of record, was tracking each person that got one, and then if they rescheduled or canceled or anything, we would be able to track all that with webhooks so that they know that it didn't actually happen or it did. So
Did you
people
guys
are
have,
aware.
like an analytics tracking system for this?
The customer actually built that. So yeah, we definitely make our stuff kind of generic so that it works with any use case, which is why it was flexible enough for this. But that also does have the requirement that our customers have to do a little bit on their side when they develop it. So it's the trade-off that we kind of vouch for, was the ability to have more flexibility, but also a little bit of work involved.
Did you expand further than just this one company?
Yeah. I think like a few handful of other ones.
We took this solution to Danielle took this solution to lots of other
Good job.
Great to meet you.
That's right.
Man, I love being at these meetups.
So yeah, and this part and then this part, these are part of the setup too. So this is all happening really on the back end, and not actually any user or anyone in like that COVID vaccination site is seeing any of this. So this is all programmatic. This was really just the exact solution that DH and I had prepared for our customer in order to build this and handle all the edge cases and make sure it meets their problem statement. So
how many iterations did you go through in the 2 weeks? Because that's a fast turn with the person to say, is this right? How's this going to work?
It was fast.
Was it not that, or you guys just waterfall?
We did it like
this one was like a miracle one. I don't know if it was just because we were like, oh yeah, it's COVID vaccines, that's what's on our mind, and we knew immediately like how to do it. But
you're helping people.
Exactly, yeah.
You turn it and like
Further
these
down.
guys.
It was a 48-hour turnaround.
And then you went to them and said, this is what we got.
Well, we did it on the call live. So within an hour, we came up with everything in here. And then there were a few other details that we had to hash out, but we didn't have to change anything.
Yeah, they signed like 2 days later, and then we had a handoff internally.
Mhm.
So we did a big internal handoff, and they took the
You
ball.
guys
and
gonna
ran
build what
with
we
it.
promised now.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
You got 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it and then there was a few iterations after that when they actually started, turning the wrenches. But yeah, we did it. You and I, didn't we stay up late or something like that, get beers and do this? I can't remember. But
no, because we had to make this so you could get your vaccine.
Oh, yeah,
so you
that's
could
right.
come to the office.
That's
Were you two the first two in line?
Yeah, you're like, oh, that's right. It's the front of the line. It's just,
I get it.
I'm awesome.
Jeez, we missed that. We should have done that. That would have been
Yeah. Reached out to the people, that were preventing you.
Whoops, I don't know how Dave Honan got it.
Yeah. I was
3 times in case.
If only the solutions engineers at NYLAS got to do the outbounding, we probably would have reached out to the Louisville.
Yeah, that's right.
Let them know.
Did you guys, when you went live, you might talk about this later, did you guys experience any breaking bugs or anything like that you had to have incident response take care of?
Oh yeah, I'm sure there were some.
Yeah, I don't know a lot. I know there were a couple of, during testing that we had, like we said, we had to make a couple product mods. And stuff they didn't figure out till after they went live, but we moved really fast on it. So it was a high priority for the company, given the value of the deal plus the exposure of it.
Yeah.
So they moved fast and they got developers on it right away. There was just a couple of things like that.
Yeah, it was like round robining when you have like hundreds of lanes at a single place.
Stacked up too, like
yeah.
At some point your API are going to reject something, or
Yeah.
it's going to come through, right? And like, how did you guys handle like just the massive bombardment of people smashing the queue?
Yeah, there was this one, we had a small issue with, I don't know the detail, maybe you do, Johnny, but we had a small issue with people competing for the same spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, like race conditions,
Yeah.
because calendars inherently have no sort of locking or transactions. So yeah,
Who's fastest?
So we had to put a solution in for that, and we fixed that like
What was
really
your
quick.
solution for that?
I don't know.
I think we added our own locking in our, so because we're that layer above the calendar, and we know that everybody's coming into that same scheduler page if they want to book on that calendar, then we can like lock the calendar in our software and our API, which obviously if you don't want, in a scheduling solution, I think it's totally fair, but again, an API, just locking a single calendar is not the best. So
it's practice.
yeah, which is why we didn't do it in the first place.
You can do it.
Yeah, you have ownership of it.
Mhm.
Was there any HIPAA compliance concerns with having any amount of this data within your systems?
We're HIPAA certified or HIPAA compliant, and we've been like, we get HIPAA audited.
Is that your guys'
There's so many nuances there.
structure in-house, or I guess that this is small purpose?
Yeah. So this is, the entire solution is hosted. So we host it in AWS, and all the data is there. And since we got HIPAA certified, luckily, like right before all this, earlier in 2020, so we were totally capable of handling all of that data.
And the system doesn't have to read the person getting the vaccines calendar or anything like that. It's only the location. So there's not much information at all. Experts.
One thing around information that I've always was sketched out about when I was signing up for all these vaccine queues, you had to give all your information before you sign up. Almost like an abandoned cart where like Target was getting all of my information and then they just throw in their database like, oh, this person's vaccine, that throws into this demographic, that falls into this system, right?
Yeah.
Did you guys work with the partner for export data, or do you know if the medical partner was exporting their data for their own team's use?
I have no idea. Like that was in their app, right?
Yeah.
We only cared about what the email was so that we can, send them an invite basically to the event and then a reminder.
You guys got clean hands that whole operation?
Yeah. So we made it a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, to this day, I don't think I've worked on any like customer deals where they were doing like a data mining application. Typically at NYLAS, because our founder and CTO, Christine Spang, is from MIT, and we have plenty of other people at our company that were privacy minded. At NYLAS, we certainly don't do any like data mining or selling of data. So it would kind of be like weird for me to sell one of those use cases, but if people needed to do that, I don't know. It's
cross that bridge with
me. Yeah, haven't had to deal with it yet though. So
once the NSA comes knocking,
I'm sure. Yeah, they'll come knocking silently. I'm sure. They'll just slink in the back door. All right. So we create a scheduling page for each queue. So we have a virtual calendar for each lane or each queue at a COVID vaccination site. And then the scheduler is like that top level layer. So the calendar sits at the API layer, and the scheduler is kind of like hybrid API, but also a web component, fully featured, just like one line of JavaScript, and it shows the scheduler. Yep. So it's the scheduler has the logic of, all right, if you want maximum fairness or maximum availability, with COVID, you want maximum availability rather than fairness. Fairness is like perfect round robin, like go around this room and not skip anybody. Availability is just like, all right, well, if Bailey's not free, we're going to skip over and just keep going to everybody else in the room. And we're just going to show any time slot that anyone in this room has available. So, because they don't want doses to expire. So that was what they wanted to do there. And the scheduler did the round robin. So all they do is just pass in an array of, or a list of the different virtual calendars. and say round robin these, and the scheduler would just show the times and let them book up and move between the queues. And then they would get this page edit token. This is a little bit more getting into the weeds, where each page edit token allows you to go fetch information about the page and also update it. So if they wanted to change, they wanted to say for one day, and this was one of the problems that they had, was one day at, say, here in Denver, they have 15 people or enough doses to do 15 lanes for 8 hours throughout the day. The next day, they don't have enough doses to do that, or the next day they need like more doses, or they have more, so they want to do that. So it had to like expand and contract day by day, and sometimes even like throughout the day. So
did you have like a master list to turn off the lanes and whatnot, like the sub calendars?
yeah, so on each scheduler page, you would have that list of the different lanes, and you just say, all right, we're taking that lane out today. Like, we're just not going to do that.
Or we'll
And
do a partial day on that.
yeah.
Because they don't
So that
have
was all
enough
manual too.
doses.
They didn't take the data from like their dose availability.
Right.
They were just like, this is.
It was part of the calculation. They would type everything in, and then they had a little formula that said, we need this one, this one, this one, this one, and then the first 10 slots of that one.
Nice.
And then they block the rest of it out.
What would happen if somebody called out then? Would it update in enough time and move the appointments that Wayne had to other people?
If
somebody canceled, you
Like,
mean?
or the resource of the employees, like there weren't enough nurses or
Yes.
something like that, or they all got sick with COVID during the middle of the day or something.
Yeah, like what,
Yeah.
like what happened to this scheduled people?
that actually wasn't a requirement that they told us
Yeah,
we had to deal with,
That's
surprisingly.
right. And they said that they would have multiple people, so.
They got bodies, so just throw them in.
Yeah, it was more, yeah.
You should.
So that's why we came up with the name Jabber, because it was sort of this generic name for a person authorized to give a shot. And it could be that there's 3 of them there and that they just rotate through or whatever.
cool.
So we just came up with this generic role called the Jabber, which was, and that's what we used. And then and our marketing department actually thought that was like an industry name. So they were asking us about it. And John and I were like, no, we sort of made that up.
Yeah, we thought it was just kind of funny and easy, yeah.
How long could have gone with it? Like,
Yeah, that's,
know.
oh yeah.
Weird.
That's like a couple of years ago we came up with that. It was pretty funny.
Yep. And then, yeah, so that like page edit token allowed them to go in and edit that if they needed to like move it up and down. And it was mostly around whether they had enough doses, not around like personnel. This like location master calendar was really that source of truth, like tracking how many appointments actually happen per day, kind of like an aggregate. So they wouldn't have to go through all the different lanes or virtual calendars and query it. They could just query one. So because we have a webhooks flow where when someone books an appointment and then we send it through a webhook back to their application, and then they're capable of saying, okay, we got this, a new booking came in, increment this counter. And then when someone RSVPs to it, they say, all right, it's confirmed, or if someone cancels throughout the process, then they know they like decrement that counter. Anything to add on this one? This one's a.
And the thing
this
about
one's a
virtual
beast.
calendars to remember is they're programmatic. So the patient never sees them, right? They're just, like Johnny said in the very beginning, they're sort of a database in a way.
Yeah. It's like just visualizing a table.
In the form of a calendar.
Yeah.
Because we have virtual calendars to use for schedulers that don't have a provider-based calendar. So a rental car, a test drive.
Like what stoplight does, designer first.
Yeah, a test drive. Like if you're at a dealership, you want to test drive a
Volkswagen?
Volkswagen, yeah.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Just open up your phone and before you get there.
Exactly what I was thinking. So if you want to test drive a Volkswagen and you want to see when a sales rep is available and the car is available, you use the virtual calendar on the car, and then whatever the provided dealership, Volkswagen dealership calendar is for the sales rep, you would use their calendar to book on there, and you can keep all those factors in place.
That's kind of nice.
And that's so what Johnny and I did is just repurposed it as this queue in a way to it's spun up by a machine and not used, you know what I mean? All that stuff. So it's never really seen.
Right.
The person just knows.
It's like a cron job that's just running.
Yeah, and I think you have screenshots, but the person just sees the available time slots. The scheduler does the round robin based on fairness and all the different pieces that come together. And so.
And so what was the UI though was
based off that medical app, or you go for?
Yeah, so it's just, yeah, that's the UI.
I signed up for Walgreens, they didn't have a slot.
What it does is it goes.
I
in-
put Walgreens.
I blame you all.
I crudely pasted Walgreens. I think it was Walgreens in Florida actually. There was.
Specific to Florida, just so everyone knows.
It was Florida, yeah, it was Florida.
Yeah.
That's Florida.
Thank goodness. I'm gonna write a letter.
Well, we're at one, I'm sure.
But yeah, I figured we just jump to this. We get into the weeds a lot on that one, but there's a lot of details. But I guess the point is that the API was able to support it because our scheduler, this UI that the patient ultimately sees, is all configurable by the API, so they could dynamically set everything up and handle all of the like crazy things that happened during like the COVID vaccination.
That's cool.
And not that it really matters so much in this case, but if you notice the time zones, the scheduler does handle those, especially if you're doing Zoom meetings and things. But I suppose with Jabber meetings, it's not the same.
I mean, if I was trying to get my vaccine in Florida, this explains.
I suppose you're right. Like if you're making your
your
appointment in California and driving to Florida, you want it to be in the right time. And I'm going to quote Johnny. I quote Johnny on all my calls that handling time zones is super hard to do, and he broke a keyboard once working on them. So it's a definitely true story, right? Yeah.
No, it's not true. I broke multiple keyboards.
He's like, well, this one broke Bob Dave's accent. Yeah, I know they break easy. It's my clocks.
But for this case, the time zone wasn't that important. But I guess there is a situation where you could book it in Colorado and then drive to California or whatever.
I think for like students.
Given the
and stuff, maybe.
specificity of this, outside of COVID, how do you see what you built being used in other? How else would this get played?
Well, I mean, like, when was the last time you tried to book a meeting with someone and you had to send over times from your calendar, and then they had to send over, I think this time works, and they send that over to Calendly.
So
like end user.
Version of that.
So like end user is Calendly,
I'm
but
just saying, like,
I could use this for my gym software, for instance.
Oh,
they have a resource
yeah.
of, we have 30 Pilates instructors, and we have capacity for 200, and we have 6 rooms. This kind of integration with
Small direct club, you go in to get the Invisaligners and sit down in the seat in the retail store. It's not a person, right? It's a seat versus a lane. That would be another interesting.
Okay.
I heard one, and I still don't know to this day if it was actually for pool floaties, but they said pool floaties. They're like, we want a calendar to represent like a tube, like an inner tube or a pool floaty at a
You can
pool.
rent them out.
Yeah, so or real estate is another huge one where it's like a property has its own calendar. Yeah.
And there's a lot of healthcare. We have a lot of healthcare companies using it, where they'll do like psych evaluation meetings between a psychologist and a patient.
You know,
and
it
that's
just occurred to me, lab testing, because you go and you just sit there and wait, but to be able to book a lane or a queue, that would be good.
I
So
can
those are
even
probably
see it.
15-minute increments.
Yeah.
Uber should use this.
Yeah.
Checker.
I can even see sales. Sales could easily use it, going from an SDR to an AE easily with a big enough team.
There you go. We just saw the.
It'll do assignments too,
you
like.
guys write down the use cases when you leave.
You're like, these are good. Go by. Yeah, I hear you guys got funding. Where's our paycheck? Happy.
Talk to Gary about partnerships.
Right there, eat the pizza.
John, have you ever had the idea of maybe calendars and cars?
Yeah, all the time. Every time I'm driving, I wish I could send somebody my availability.
Or exactly where I was on the street, or it could be traffic flow.
Or what if when you go in your car, you don't download 90,000 contacts each
Yeah.
time you drive to 7-Eleven?
What about
I agree. Or I mean,
Would this help me get to the moon at some point? Like, when can I go to the moon? Yeah. Especially like Blue Origin moon.
Alcohol and meetups.
yeah.
Y'all can sell the lab cord. That'd be great. Because they're pretty. They're trash.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
What about with background checks? Like being able to see, like, okay, he was in jail from this time to this time. But he's free.
No, that's
local prisoners in the area near you. Well, it's so hard to hire, like in restaurants, knowing that Johnny's brother's coming out of prison.
next week. And yes.
My cousin Gary, all right?
Come on, respect.
I think we're going to use open hours for their time while they're in jail, so that they're serving the jail sentence during
We actually do have a drug screening product, and this is actually one of the huge issues with it is people trying to go to LabCorp and get their drug test scheduled. And it's the possible.
Give Danielle an intro.
What's the company side?
They're just like, they're fucking kidding me right now? It's fine. It's like 6 p.m.
Just fix it when it breaks.
Actually, you guys know this is all designed to be like.
Yeah, I was like, you guys no one thinks gonna come with 100 ideas.
I want names and numbers and emails.
ABC.
Yeah.
Closing the doors.
The only reason I really ever try to sell is just because I got to compete with DH.
What?
So the only reason I really ever try to sell is because I got to compete with you.
That's right.
All right, let's get back to APIs.
Okay.
APIs. So, yeah, any other questions?
What APIs here?
There it is.
Well, thank you, Johnny. That was awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Haven't heard that many people clap in a while.
Well, essentially, that was
The
the
question?
presentation. I like that you started with, my presentation is going to be very short.
Yeah.
But you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I get you guys excited. Like, all right, we can get real into it, and then it turns out it was long.
That's great, and I think that's why you see that the in-person is also bringing like much added value. Because it's so much easier to like jump in and ask questions versus being online. I was checking. I don't think there's any questions from Arthur or Carlos in the chat, and I think we did a pretty good like turnout of questions in the room. So we're approaching